You are wiping down the counter at Denny's when your phone buzzes with a number you don't recognize, and normally you'd let it go to voicemail. But something makes you answer. It's done, the voice says. The acquisition closed. Check your account. You almost dropped the rag. 14 months of vesting. 4% of a company you helped build in your spare time. You step into the walk-in freezer because it's the only quiet place, and you pull up your banking app with hands that don't feel like yours. The number sitting there is $2,314,000. You read it 4 times. You are 29 years old and you make $16 an hour refilling ketchup bottles. And now there is more money in your checking account than your parents made in their entire lives combined. Your phone rings again before you can process any of it. "We have a problem," he says. "Someone's threatening to leak the user database before the deal fully settles. They want $200,000 wired tonight, or they post everything. Customer emails, payment info, all of it, and Vantage's buyer walks. If that happens, the wire reverses. You lose everything you just got. You feel the floor of your life tilt. Call the police, you say. If we call the police, it becomes public. The buyer finds out we had a breach we didn't disclose. The deal dies anyway. This is contained right now. You're the only other person who has signing authority on the escrow backup account. I need you to authorize the transfer." This is the moment you stop being a waiter who got lucky. This is the moment you become someone who makes decisions with real weight attached to them, and you know it even as it's happening. You think about the $200,000. You think about the $2.3 million already sitting in your account. You think about every customer whose email address is about to become a bargaining chip in a game you didn't know you were playing. Don't pay them, you say. Not yet. Get a lawyer on the phone first. Right now. It's the first real decision of your new life, and it costs you 3 hours of sleep and a lawyer's retainer of $11,000 just to have someone tell you at 2 a.m. that paying the extortion would have been a felony under 3 different statutes, and that the leak was almost certainly a bluff from a disgruntled former contractor with far less access than he claimed. The deal closes clean. The data never surfaces. You feel like you just walked through a door that locked behind you. The money changes the shape of every conversation you have after that. Your mother calls crying, not from sadness, and asks if you can help your brother with his truck payment, $600. You send it in 4 minutes and feel nothing but relief that it was that easy. Then your Uncle Ray calls, a man you've spoken to maybe 11 times in your life, wanting $80,000 for a restaurant that was, he swears, one bad landlord away from success. You say you'll think about it. You don't sleep that night doing math on a legal pad. Not the money math, but the math of what happens to family when you say no, and what happens to you when you say yes to everyone. You start reading. Trust structures, tax brackets, the difference between long-term and short-term capital gains. You hire a fee-only financial advisor named Priya, who tells you the truth nobody around you wants to hear. Most sudden wealth people are broke again within 5 years, not because they're careless, but because they never build a wall between generosity and survival. You need 2 accounts in your head, she says. The money that helps people and the money that is you. They cannot touch each other. You take her seriously in a way you've never taken advice seriously before, because for the first time in your life, a mistake has 6 zeros attached to it. You say no to Ray. It is the hardest sentence you've ever built. You offer him $4,000 instead, as a gift, not a loan, and tell him that's the end of it. He doesn't call again for months. When he finally does, it's just a talk, and something in you unclenches a little because you realize the money didn't cost you the relationship. The boundary saved it. 6 weeks in, a man named Delgado finds you through a mutual acquaintance and pitches you on a real estate fund, promising 18% annual returns, guaranteed. You almost wire $90,000 before Priya asks you 3 questions that Delgado can't answer, and you understand, cold and fast, that you were seconds from being exactly the kind of person predators are built to find. You block his number. You feel less like a lucky winner and more like a target that has to stay alert forever now. This is the part nobody tells you about money. It doesn't buy safety. It buys a bigger, quieter kind of danger, one that wears a suit and calls you by your first name. You take a real position at a small logistics firm 6 months later, not because you need the paycheck, but because you need the structure, the sense that you still build something with your hands and your judgment instead of just guarding a number in a database. Your boss doesn't know what's in your accounts. You like it that way. You still show up at 7 a.m. You still take the bus some days, out of habit, not necessity, and there's a strange comfort in that. in choosing the ordinary when the extraordinary is available to you. A year after the wire hits, Marcus calls again. Vantage's old contractor, the one who tried the extortion, has resurfaced, this time threatening a civil suit claiming he was owed equity he never actually earned. It's baseless, your lawyer says, but baseless doesn't mean cheap or fast. Marcus wants to settle quietly for $40,000 to make it disappear before it becomes public and drags both your names through local news. You think about the version of yourself who answered a freezer phone call, not knowing what signing authority even meant. You are not that person anymore. You've read the statutes. You've sat across from lawyers 3 times now. You know the difference between a real threat and a loud one. No, you tell Marcus. We fight it. Paying makes us look guilty, and it teaches every opportunist who ever meets us that we're an easy mark. You are right. The suit collapses in 4 months when the contractor's own lawyer withdraws, citing lack of merit. It costs you $18,000 in legal fees instead of $40,000 in ransom, and something more valuable than either number. Proof to yourself that you can hold a line under real pressure and not fold. 2 years out, you've built something that looks less like a windfall and more like a life. A modest house, paid outright, chosen for its low taxes and quiet street rather than its size. A diversified portfolio Priya rebalances twice a year while you barely think about it. A standing rule that any request for money over $1,000 gets 48 hours and a conversation. No exceptions, no matter who's asking or how urgent they claim it is. You still work, not because you have to, but because the version of you that refills ketchup bottles and takes the bus is the version that kept your feet on the ground when the money tried to lift you somewhere unstable. You've learned that wealth isn't a finish line. It's a role, one with its own threats, its own judgment calls, its own quiet daily discipline, and you've spent 2 years learning to hold it without letting it hold you. Some nights you still open the banking app just to look at the number, not out of greed, but disbelief that hasn't fully worn off. Then you close it, set your alarm for 7, and go to sleep like someone who has somewhere to be in the morning, because you do.